For what purpose does the gentleman from Virginia rise?
Mr. Speaker, I ask to address the House for 1 minute for the purpose of inquiring about next week's schedule.
Without objection, you're recognized from Virginia.
I thank the Speaker, and I yield to the gentleman from Maryland, the Majority Leader, for the purpose of announcing next week's schedule.
I thank the Republican Whip for yielding. On Monday, the House will meet at 12:30 p.m. for morning hour and 2 p.m. for legislative business. On Tuesday, the House will meet at 10:30 a.m. for morning hour and 12 p.m. for legislative business. On Wednesday and Thursday, the House will meet at 10 a.m. for legislative business. On Friday, no votes are expected in the House, which is a change from the previously announced schedule. We will consider several bills under suspension of the rules. The complete list of suspension bills, as is the custom, will be announced by the close of business tomorrow. In addition, we will consider H.R. 1388, the Generations Invigorating Volunteerism and Education Act, also known as the National Service legislation. And I thank the gentleman for yielding.
Thank you. Thank the gentleman, Mr. Speaker. As the gentleman knows, there are 3 weeks remaining prior to the 2-week Easter recess. And since the last recess, this House and Congress has sent a $410 billion spending bill to the President. We have passed a bill imposing housing cram down, and we just voted on a water quality bill, as well as celebrating Pi Day. I'd ask the gentleman if he intends to use the next 3 weeks to try and focus on the fear that exists out there on the part of so many Americans about their jobs. And is it that we can commit to focusing on preserving, protecting, and creating jobs over the next 3 weeks? And I yield.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. In fact, we're going to continue, as we've been doing for every week that we've been in session in this Congress, to focus on jobs creation. In fact, I would say to the gentleman that the 3 bills you mentioned, other than the Pi bill, were focused on jobs, focused on investing in our economy, in clean water, in education, in the safety of our public on the streets, keeping cops on the beat. So that I say to my friend, and the answer to your question is we're going to continue to focus on jobs during the next 3 weeks as well. We think we've been doing that. We've had some disagreements on whether that was the way to do it. I understand that, but there's no doubt that we're going to continue to focus on jobs. One of those will be at some point in time and before we leave for the Easter break. As the gentleman knows, it's our intention to bring up the budget as well.
I thank the gentleman. I would further ask the gentleman, though, given that this budget that he intends to bring to the floor and the fact that, frankly, we feel that budget has an Achilles heel, which is it increases taxes on the primary job creators in the country, which is small business. Can the gentleman tell us if there are other bills that are specifically focused on helping small business people get back into the game so that instead of just raising taxes, redistributing wealth, we can actually focus on job creation, wealth creation, and get back to the road to prosperity? And I yield.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. One of the things I want to say in addition to my response to the gentleman's first question, as he mentioned what he referred to the cram down, as the gentleman knows that there were 3 very important provisions which were not controversial, which is perhaps why I didn't mention them, notwithstanding the fact that many voted against the bill to help homeowners, help those who were either at risk or maybe at risk of losing their homes. The bankruptcy provision was to try to facilitate, in league with the very substantial reform proposals proposed by the administration, which would be under Fannie Mae and under the Treasury Department and under Sheila Bair's aegis, trying to help homeowners. So that bill, we think, was a very, very important part of the comprehensive homeowners affordability and stability plan announced by the administration. With respect to helping small business, as the gentleman knows, we passed the Recovery and Reinvestment Act. As the gentleman also knows, notwithstanding the fact that was not supported by any on your side of the aisle, it had very substantial tax cuts in there for exactly the people you're talking about, that is small businesses. So that we think that as you do, we have agreement that small businesses are a vitally important part of creating jobs and creating economic opportunity in this country, and we have been supporting policies to assist them. One of the things, the gentleman and I were at the fiscal summit together, but we went down to the health summit. We weren't in the same breakout group, but as one of the things we're looking at, as you know, to try to help small business with health care costs. Well, that's a major challenge confronting the small business community, and our friends at NFIB, as you know, have shared that interest. Now, we haven't gotten to a specific proposal, so we'll have to see what happens when we get there, but we certainly share your concern, but we also believe we have been acting toward the end that the gentleman suggests, and that is assisting small business to grow and to create jobs and to stay in business.
Well, I thank the gentleman. Speaker, I would like to draw the gentleman's attention to several news reports lately that have alluded to perhaps Chairman Obey and others in the majority caucus preparing a second stimulus bill. In fact, I know the chairman was quoted in Congress Daily this morning as saying that it is spectacularly unreasonable to expect to see that the stimulus package that we pass produce any action anytime soon. Further, we see that the economist Paul Krugman thought and has written that the first stimulus bill that passed has failed because it didn't spend enough. And now we know that the economist Mark Zandi has met with the majority caucus this week and said that the stimulus that passed would fall short of the goals that were originally put out there to create 3.5 million jobs. So I'd ask the gentleman, should we expect in the House for there to be another stimulus bill? And if so, would you include some of the Republican proposals that were in our plan that were focused on job creators, focused on small businesses, entrepreneurs, and the self-employed? And I yield.
I presume the gentleman is referring, in addition to the job creators that we had in our bill. As you know, we believe that the substitute that was offered, that was defeated in a bipartisan way to the Recovery and Reinvestment Package, created, and there's a difference of this, our perception is 2 million less jobs than the bill that we offered and that was passed, which we think either created or saved 3.5 million jobs. Having said that, you ask about an additional relief package. I note you quoted the newspapers as talking about Mr. Zandi, who was one of Mr. McCain's advisors during the course of the last campaign. But I also noted in the paper that you were also quoted as saying House Minority Whip Eric Cantor didn't rule out the idea of a second stimulus package and said Wednesday he would be willing to sit down with the White House and congressional Democrats to discuss any new emergency spending proposals. I appreciate that offer, and I want to assure the gentleman that when and if, and I have no reason to believe, by the way, that Mr. Obey is doing anything as reported in the paper that he might be doing. I have no reason to believe he is doing that, but I want you to know that in light of your interest in sitting down, that I share that interest, and we'll do that.
Well, thank the gentleman. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to, for the record, set it straight. My comments were that if we're going to get serious about focusing on job creation, yes, I would support a bill that would provide relief to the small business people of this country so that we can get the entrepreneurs back into the game of putting capital to work so we can not only save the jobs that we've got, we can begin to create new ones for our families and our communities. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask the gentleman that if he would respond to some of the reports that there may be a bill dealing with stem cell research coming to the floor next week, and whether he could confirm that, and if so, what is the substance of that bill? And I yield.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. First, in a very short response to your question is, I do not expect a legislation dealing with stem cells to be coming to the floor next week. I do, however, respond to the gentleman that we are considering bringing to the floor legislation similar in terms of specifics very similar, if not the same, as the bill that passed this House on a bipartisan vote in the last Congress. We believe that that will be consistent with the President's action this week dealing with the executive order on stem cell research. We believe this research provides real hope for some of mankind's most difficult diseases and afflictions and challenges. We think the research is promising. On the other hand, we want to make sure that it does, in fact, do what we say we want to do. As you know, when we passed legislation like that before, we made it very clear that human cloning was not something that the Congress supported, and that we were specifically prohibiting that. So in answer to your question, I would think the legislation would be very much along those same lines. But we do not expect it to be here next week. I want to tell the gentleman it may be, however, on the floor prior to our leaving for the recess.
I thank the gentleman. Mr. Speaker, I know that the gentleman is aware, as all of us are, about the tremendous job losses that we have experienced in America of late. 650,000 plus jobs just last month. And there is an announcement yesterday that we all read about, that there is the card check bill that was introduced. Along with that introduction, there was a new nonpartisan study that was published that predicts that the passage of card check legislation will result in the immediate loss of 600,000 jobs. So I would ask the gentleman, number one, when he expects to bring that card check bill to the floor, and if in the interim, or if he is considering that if the Senate is to act and we are to act in these economic times, why would we be doing that if we know through nonpartisan studies issued that it's a job killer? Why would we be bringing that to the floor? And I yield.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. First of all, let me respond. We don't know that. Somebody reported that. We don't know that at all, and very frankly, we don't accept that figure. We don't accept the figure that it will, in fact, lose jobs. We very much on this side of the aisle feel very strongly that the working men of this country have the right under law to organize and to bargain collectively for wages and benefits and working conditions. We think that is inherent in the rights in the free market. Very frankly, I would tell my friend that I've traveled, as he has, in many parts of the world, and rarely have I seen a successful democracy that didn't have a free trade union movement. So we feel very strongly about that, and we feel very strongly the right to organize, and that means that it is the employee's choice of how to organize. Now, having said all of that, let me also say that we've observed that there has been, in many ways, a relationship between the decline in union membership and a decline in the buying power of the American worker. And the greatest disparity between what average workers make and what the bosses make now exists in our country to a greater extent than any other place in the world. We think that's a problem. Consumerism is what drives this economy. Consumerism is down. Incomes have been frozen, and you see, in my opinion, some of that result. I don't, by any stretch of the imagination, want to say that the reason we're in the decline that we're in today and facing the challenge that we're in today is a direct result of the fact that union membership is down. But certainly, I believe that one of the results is the reduction in the buying power of average Americans in this country. Now, having said that, we passed this bill. We passed it pretty handily. We passed it in the last Congress. It's our expectation that the Senate is going to be dealing with this legislation. They have not yet considered it, and it is my belief that we want to see whether they can pass it. We believe they can, and we are going to be interested in what action they take.
Thank the gentleman.
I yield back.
Thank the gentleman. And for the record, any democracy has also in it the elections that afford one the right to a private or a secret ballot, which this bill completely takes away from the workers of this country.
Will the gentleman yield?
Not yet,
Okay.
Mr. Speaker. And I would say again that our economy is not just built on consumerism. Our economy is built on investments, and frankly, the rebuilding of this economy will take place with job creation. And if we know that card check is a job killer, folks across this country have got to be scratching their heads right now, wondering what in the world is Washington doing, passing a piece of legislation that has been proven to kill jobs, not promote jobs. And I yield to the gentleman.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. Let me say that with respect to, as I said before, we don't believe it's a job killer, number one. But number two, the gentleman and I have a disagreement factually as to what the bill does. We don't believe this kills the right of the employees to have a free election at all, period. We believe, in fact, the employee has that choice. The employee has the absolute right to respond, no, I don't want to sign your card, let's have an election, and I'll sign it for that purpose and that purpose only, to give you the 30% you need to get the election, or I think I'm right on 30%. But in any event, we believe this is the employee's choice of how they want to organize, not the employer's choice, so that we are not and did not, by passage of this legislation, take away from the employees the right to have an election if they so choose. I yield back.
I thank the gentleman. And one remaining question, Mr. Speaker. Can the gentleman inform us as to whether the public lands bill will be brought back up under a rule in this House? And I yield.
I thank the gentleman yield, and I thank the gentleman for yielding. We think the public lands bill that failed just by 2 votes yesterday is a very good bill, overwhelming support. Essentially 2/3 of this House supported it, 2/3 of the Senate supported. Actually, I think it was probably even more than that. But in any event, we believe that bill is a very, very good bill. We're hopeful that a number of your members will conclude that maybe they should have voted for it. We'll see on that. So the answer to your question is we may bring it up either by rule or by suspension, but we want to see this bill pass. Having said that, let me say that Leader Reid, the leader of the Senate, has indicated that he's going to file for cloture on that bill in the Senate tomorrow, so they may well move on it as well, so that there are a number of options for us to pursue, and as you will not be surprised, we are going to pursue the one we think is most successful.
I thank the gentleman. Mr. Speaker, and I yield back. How the